Howdy, everyone.
You're only talking in the teams. Oh. Oh wait, no.
Today, I've got an announcement. Starting Mondays at 6:30, we're going to be having a hacker hangout. It's just a general. It'll just be like a general hangout spot for people to collaborate, learn stuff. Going in the spring semester, it'll carry into be in person as well, and we'll be bringing fun little toys to mess around with. Bad USBs, shitty computers to just fucking put malware on, that kind of stuff. But at the moment, it'll all be virtual, of course. And on the website, the calendar has been adjusted to do that. I'll be there as well, and we should have a couple other members standard, because before the hacker hangout is when we have our team meetings, and we usually just like work on stuff, just do like practices, practice certain skills and hack machines together. So we'll just carry that and invite everyone, basically. So you're encouraged to join. I don't know if for the first one we can have like another movie again. I not looked at movies that are hacker themed besides hackers, of course. That's yes. No, feel free. Yes. So in Parrot Security, all of the tools and pretty much, yeah, all of the tools that you use are kind of located in your /users/share. And so those aren't the binaries for the tools, but as an example, you'll find your wordless in there, in a folder just titled wordless. And you'll also find web shells there and a whole lot of other stuff, just because programs that come with either their own wordless file, kind of like drop them in there. I'll put that in the meeting notes as well. So we're gonna begin now. Let me know if anything is acting up. On Teams, everything should be recording and sharing the screen proper, but it's kind of hard to manage two clients at once. So we're going to be learning about the exploitation process today. So the exploitation process is like the biggest step and like the biggest process for the hacking process, basically. So while you're doing the exploitation process, if you don't have a good structure, if you don't have good notes, you can easily kind of just get lost. The exploitation process can take a very long time. Of course, when we do our labs, I'm not going to do something that's going to take like hours, but when you're doing a real CTF or just any kind of CTF that's challenging, or like a real penetration test, the exploitation process can easily take hours or even days. So yeah, you want to make sure you have good notes and you have good structure, because there's a lot to know. It's not just broad in, it's very broad in knowledge and application, because every sort of software has their own exploits, their own holes, and well, there's a lot of software, so there's a lot to know. The ultimate goal during the exploitation process is to get full root access, the full administrator access. The exploitation process is not just running one exploit. one of our first labs, we ran an exploit that gave us full root access, but that will very, very rarely happen. To get full root access, you'll have to exploit, multiple things. So you'll first need to have a successful exploit to get on the inside to get your initial foothold, and then you'll need to exploit things on the inside of the system to escalate your permissions to that full root access. So as an example, there could be a web application that's got a CMS with default credentials. So if you log into that, that would be your initial foothold. And so from there, you might be able to upload a shell to the server, because it's not uncommon for a CMS to have upload pages for that. Because if you're managing a website, and let's say you're going to have a new product on your marketplace, you want to upload some pictures of the product, right? And so CMSs will have that, and they're pretty common to run into. So if you have that, you can upload a reverse shell to the server, and then that would be an escalation of user privileges. And from there, from that shell, you could exploit a lazily made cron job that the server might have, that the admin might have made, and then you could exploit that to get root access. So we're going to keep on going into more detail. So privilege escalation is, well, when you escalate your privileges and you gain privileges that shouldn't be granted. And so privilege escalation isn't always escalating to root. Like I was talking about before, when you're escalating from a CMS to user, that's going from an exploit, a successful exploitation of the CMS, and then to a user shell. And so if you have a web application that allows you to create user accounts, that's fine. It's normal for, if you have a Reddit account, a Reddit account is not a privilege escalation. But technically that could be user access. And so there's two different kinds of escalation. There's horizontal and there's vertical escalation. And so horizontal escalation is also known as pivoting. And so that's when you gain other privileges from lateral accounts, which is for like a similar level of privileges. So you're gaining new privileges, but you're not necessarily gaining higher privileges. And so it's not uncommon that you need to pivot before you can actually escalate, because not all some users have more access than others. Like a help desk user is going to have more access to like the internal systems than an office drone user, right? And so then vertical escalation is direct escalation, is when you gain higher privileges. And so the goal to that is to ultimately gain administrative, is to gain root. So the general methodology is first you gain initial access, is your initial foothold. And so once you have a little bit of access to where you can pry into the system, is when you do recon and you enumerate again. So you redo your enumeration process, but instead of enumerating and doing your reconnaissance for that initial foothold, you're doing it for privilege escalation. So if there's any kind of misconfigurations, if there's cron jobs that are running as an example, if there's other users, there's a lot that there's to look for. And so we're not going to cover all that technicality today, of course, because that just would take hours upon hours. There's so much. But going forward, we're just going to keep on learning bite size by bite size in applications of privilege escalation and exploitation. So common initial footholds. To get that initial foothold to escalate your privileges is login portals, like I was saying with the CMS. A lot of times they come with default credentials, and you can just like Google Bolt CMS default credentials and find them. upload forms, if they have client-side filtering, you can bypass that completely. So like most upload forms, they don't want you to upload like malicious things. They have some kind of filter in place, and if it's done on the client side, well, then you can get around it. Or if they just have weak server-side filtering, so like if they have a blacklist instead of a good whitelist, or sometimes they'll just check the extension and not the actual content, so you could upload like .txt, .php reverse shell. Out-of-date software, of course, is very vulnerable if you can find any that's running on a port. And then there's web application flaws, so code injection and cross-site scripting. But we'll go into detail about web application exploitation in the future as well. So common privilege escalations, it's dependent on what operating system the server is actually running, of course. So if you've only been learning with Linux machines and you run into a Windows machine, okay, you might be able to get that initial foothold all the same, but the escalation process can vary depending on what operating system it's running. Like as an example, so Windows stores their credentials in the SAM database. And I think they've actually changed that pretty recently for Windows 10. But for all of the other previous versions of Windows and server versions of Windows, they've been storing the credentials in a SAM user database, and it's not too hard to brute force them. Unlike the Linux hashes, which are kind of more secure. And you can do DLL hijacking for Windows, but of course you can't do that on Linux because there are no DLLs. Oh, and in brackets are just like commands that you can run to test for those kinds of misconfigurations. So like to view cron jobs, you do cat/etc/cron tab, which will list what cron jobs are running, if any. sudo-l will list any programs that you're able to run as sudo as your user, which is a misconfiguration that should not be a thing. And then the find/-perm one lists any files that are owned by a user. Then we're going to talk about reverse shells, because we're going to be using reverse shells today. And so getting a shell is like the primary goal of a pen tester. That is your initial. You need a shell before you can escalate to root. And so not all shells are created equally. So you usually start with a simple shell, and it's not ideal to continue to use just a simple shell for escalation purposes. Then you have a fully interactive shell, which is often necessary for successful privilege escalation. There's also a meter breeder shell, which we've used in the past, and it's extended and feature-filled. It's more stealthy, and it's useful for post-exploitation, which would be the things like covering your tracks, deleting logs, maintaining access. But for our CTFs in the labs that we'll be doing, we won't really be going into that much detail about post-exploitation. So the difference between a simple shell and a fully interactive shell is simple shells can't handle commands, certain commands and like certain processes. So like if you hit Control-C to end a process that's running on the system, the server, your target, it'll just kill your shell instead. And some commands like SU, which is used to change users, or SSH require a proper terminal to run, which a simple shell can't do. Standard error and standard output isn't properly displayed. You can't properly use text editors. There's no tab autocomplete. There's no up history. There's no job control. But you can convert a simple shell to a fully interactive shell, and we'll also go over that. So then we've got a little further learning. We've got on our website here, and let me share my screen, change my window. God. gosh. Where's my Chrome? Goodness, they changed it to where you can't share Chrome. Probably because of movie piracy. But on our weekly materials, if you go here, we've got some extra reading materials and cheat sheets, which will go over some tools that you can use for privilege escalation, some extra reading material if you want a more in-depth understanding. But outside of that, we're gonna go ahead and get started on today's lab. I'm gonna change my window over to our virtual machine. Also, any questions at the moment? So we're gonna go back and continue where we were before. Yeah? Yes. Okay. What is this? Okay. So we're gonna go to tryhackme.com again, and we're gonna continue where we were before on Vulnversity. Did any of you finish that machine, or are we all? Okay. So with Burp Suite, we're pretty much gonna ignore that completely, because Burp Suite is a very kind of. They want to introduce Burp Suite for this, which is something that's like useful and all, but we're gonna learn Burp Suite on our own time later in the future. It's just for the purposes that they're trying to teach. You know, they have a word list of like 5. You can just, yeah, you can just manually test for the Peach, manually test the file extensions in this room, and that's what we're going to be doing. Is we're just going to test manually. Okay, yeah, that's where we were. That's where we've left off. So I'm just waiting for the IP to continue. Teams looks good. Okay. Oh. Oh, because it's trying to load an HTTPS. It's not. Damn Firefox, trying to make all my requests secure. So when we navigated to our /internal on this web application here is an upload form. So these aren't uncommon to see. If we try to upload something to it though, I don't know, let's upload our OVPN packet. Extension not allowed. So it has a blacklist of extensions. So you upload forms like this is a vector for exploitation. Inside our parent security system here, if you go to your internal directory /user/share and then /web shells, which I think you can just search. We're going to be using a PHP reverse shell here because if you look at the URL bar, it says index.php. So the server is dynamic and it's using PHP as its language. So if we try to upload a reverse shell to it, which also won't work at the moment because I haven't changed anything, extension's not allowed for that. So we can answer our first question that PHP seems to be blocked. And it goes into detail, so try different versions of PHP and .phtml. So if you spend that time to just like manually change it, try to test for .php3, .php4, because it's all processed the same. If you upload a .php3 document that's all written in, well, it's all regular .php, it'll still be processed and the exploit will still work regardless of the extension. So what I want you all to do is upload up your PHP reverse shell, which is located at /users/share/web shells. The path to that is also located in meeting notes. And scroll down where it says IP and port. You want to change both of those to, you don't need to change 1, 2, 3, 4, but you will need to change the IP address. And so just list that and copy and paste, Control-Shift-C from terminal. Okay, I guess. Oh, it's read only. Well, that makes sense. And so after you've modified it, you've modified the reverse shell to properly have your IP into the IP table, or the line to where your IP is supposed to go. Change the extension name to be, instead of .php, to be .phtml, because this web application uses a blacklist. And we're just going to pretend that we've manually went through all these and we did this fuzzing stuff because we're going to be going we're going to be learning burp in the future as well. We're going to have a whole dedicated day for that. It's going to be great. So then if we try to upload our rshell.phtml, success! It's been uploaded. So we can answer that question. So another thing that we can do here is we can run another GoBuster scan to try to find where the things are uploaded to. But before we can do that, we might as well just check uploads. Okay, we found uploads. Sometimes it'll have a wacky name, and in that case, you can just run another GoBuster scan, but just specify the /internal for the IP and not just this section, because otherwise it needs to scan for this part. So before we do anything with the reverse shell, we're going to use a program called netcat, and our command that we're going to use is netcat-lvnp, which sets it in for listening and also sets the port. And so we're going to use port 1234 because that is the port that was specified in our reverse shell here. See, 1234. So then if we click on this, it executes the PHP code basically. So it won't load it because our netcat listener has successfully snagged the reverse shell, or the listener. So if we type in who am I, we are basically the web server right now. And so now we're gonna try to find our first flag, and if we navigate to just the slash of the root directory, we can go to home because that's where all the users are stored. We can list our users, and so we've got a user called Bill. We can cd over to Bill, and we can see that there's a user flag there. So that's going to be our user flag. Go ahead and snag those points. So that was, we just exploited a upload vulnerability. Because they didn't do proper filtering, they just had a weak blacklist. And also, you can, even if it's a whitelist, you can get around this. There's a lot of things that you can do to hide reverse shells. It's even possible to upload an image and have PHP code at the footer of the image and have that be executed when like the image is viewed. So even if it's not a blacklist, if it's a whitelist, you know, there's a lot of ways to do it. But that was just one method. So now we're getting into privilege escalation. And so there's a couple things we want to test for. So although it kind of tells you what to do, we want to learn more than just that. One moment. So we can upgrade our shell a bit. There's a couple of ways to upgrade your shell. Since we have a little bit of extra time, that's what we're going to do here. Which will give us a little bit more control. I'll also be posting this in notes. So now it gives us the full path. So it kind of just upgraded our shell a little bit. It's not a completely full interactive shell. I'm going to escalate this first, and then I'll, with whatever remaining time we have, I'll talk some more about that. So let's check to see if we can't run any programs as sudo. So we type in sudo-l to list them. So we can't because it's asking for a password. If we could, it would have listed any of the programs that we would have been able to run. And so there's also a script called linps, which is just a shell script and will automatically look for all this stuff, basically. And so if you have a text editor, or you can just get wget it, I think. Oh, permissions denied on this. But this is an automatic tool which will scan for a lot of common vulnerabilities and show you them if there are any things vulnerable like that. Fuck, I'm just fucking muffling this. What did it do? What result did it give? Oh, here. Let me type it exact. Actually, here. No, I'm putting it in meeting notes. Yeah, there, I posted it. Yeah. So what I did right there is I just copied all of the text of the linpiece script, which will enumerate for privilege escalation. And I gave it execute permissions, and now we're gonna run it. Oh, or it won't work. But what that does is it just automatically checks for a lot. It pretty much just does a lot of these kinds of commands manually. If you check the hint here, it gives you the command that you can use to solve this. I was trying to candidly show you more than just that, though, and I'm not having a great time doing it. So we'll go ahead and do it the way it's supposed to work. And so here it's explaining the set owner user ID upon execution. And so some files kind of have extra permissions where if they're run by a certain file, SUID gives temporary permissions to a user to run the program file with the permission of the file owner. Everyone can read it. Run that, it gives you a whole bunch of permission denied stuff, but we can also just have it output out into a file and it won't list all those permission denied things, so we'll just rerun it again and then do an out tag into output.txt. Then if we cat output.txt, we have a lot more. So it asks us what file stands out. We've got a lot of binaries here. Do any of y'all have any idea? Anyone want to take a guess? Oh, as an example, we can run that command on our own system and then kind of just compare the difference, which is like a lot easier to do. Let's do the same thing. Here. Next side. So what binaries does this one have that this one doesn't have, basically? Which binary doesn't belong? There's... So on this one, we've got the system CTL binary, which on our side is in here. Our system's got a lot more binaries that come from this because our system is just heavier than this because it's got more programs installed. But /bin system CTL is here. It's not here. And so that's the binary that's be looking kind of strange. So on the website that I posted, one of the links to it is to a database called GTFO bins, and you can just pull it up here. So it's just a curated list of various binaries that can be exploited. So if we search up systemctl, we've got a couple of things that we can do here, which will give us the root access. So we can just copy and paste, basically. I'm gonna have to craft this into so that way it's passed a little nicer. We're going to try the B. So we're going to run these one command at a time. So that makes a temporary environment variable. I gotta rewrite this. is just this right here is what's going to be executed as elevated permissions of a, that's what we're changing. And so this ID to temporary output, that doesn't do anything. But we can view root.txt with higher permissions. Messing something up. Let me just relook at this for a little bit. Oh. I just. If I just type this manually, will it work then? Is it just having trouble? Okay. Yeah, so that was literally it. I was struggling that hard because I just had to type it out one at a time. My bad. Sometimes even I have issues. Hmm? Yeah, no, what I was doing, it was the same thing. It's just I had to type it out one at a time. When I pasted it, even though I it would work in a regular terminal, it's not working in this because it's a reverse shell. Duh. Okay, so what we did line by line is we followed kind of like the instructions on here, and we modified the system CTL, which runs in an elevated state, to instead of when it starts, we change the execution to when it will execute. It should read the root.txt. So follow the rest. And the difference that I'm doing from here, instead of running systemctl the command, I'm just running the binary, which is located in /bin. So that's like the little difference in between exact commands, because we can't run sudo the command, but it runs in an elevated state. So although this is about if it's allowed to be run as super user, which we technically can't do, but because of the bit binary, it works the same way as if we were. So let me see a flag. Because in our execution, we had it cat root.txt and then just paste, take that output and put it in our /opt as our flag. So we changed how the binary actually worked off of GTFO bins. and then struggled a little bit because I was trying to paste it in the terminal. And then after we did that, we just ran the changed binary right here. And if we view our flag, there's our output. And so we've successfully gotten our initial foothold through the vector of the upload form, and then we escalated our permissions by exploiting a misconfiguration with SUID. And so GTF opens is something that's super useful that if you keep on doing like CTFs in your own time, that you'll end up using a lot. Okay, SUID and sudo. Okay, open forum time. Any questions? Again, I'm super sorry that I struggled for like 5 minutes trying to paste a command in the terminal. Yes. Yes, certainly. Here, 1 second. I'm just gonna find. I'm actually gonna have to just log in a Discord through my virtual machine. Because whenever I paste, I don't know if it wants me to. Paste from here. Oh goody, yes I can. Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna put that into the meeting notes. I'm also going to link the GTFO bins link down there. All right, there. You should be able to just run those same commands in your own terminal. Everything's been typed out the same way.